All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to present our Meet the Speaker profile. I'm Ashley Baptiste, CEO of Conferences Connect, and I am so delighted to have Julia Hamm. She's the president and CEO of Smart Electric Power Alliance here. She's going to be presenting at the upcoming conference, the Power Conference to Advance Women in Energy, which starts January 19th. Welcome, Julia.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me, not only to do the speaker, obviously meet the speaker, but more importantly, the conference coming up. I'm excited about it.
We are too, and we're just thrilled that we get a chance to feature you and hear about your advice. I love what you're going to be presenting on. You want to talk a little bit about what you're gonna present?
Oh gosh, well, now you're putting me on a spot. I don't remember the exact title of the session, but really talking about leadership through the lens of managing change and uncertainty. And it's a really interesting time, obviously, to focus on that topic. But I would say that's really what my whole career has been about. Being a leader in the energy sector, focused on the energy transition. SEPA's day-to-day is about change and uncertainty and helping navigate through those really challenging situations. So there's a lot to talk about, I think from a big picture standpoint, but then obviously given the year that was 2020, there are a lot of very timely other things, that we can talk about that are more sort of crisis. Well, it's not, I hate to use the word crisis, but sort of crisis management.
It sure felt like a crisis.
In a time of crisis. Yeah.
Well, I love that you're focusing on really like what are the lessons that we can learn from what we experienced in 2020. Yeah. And as happy as everybody has been to turn the corner and it's now 2021, it's like, okay, let's make sure that we go back and gather like, okay, well, what did we learn so that we can take those lessons with us into the next year. So I'm thrilled that you're going to be speaking about that because I think it's a really important discussion for anyone, but especially women who are looking to advance their career. And so much is going on in the energy sector. So let's jump topics a little bit, if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about your family, your hometown, where you live.
Sure. So I live in Arlington, Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C. And I live here with my husband, and I have two kids I have an 11-year-old son and a 9.5-year-old daughter, and our dog, who's you can't see, but sitting next to me, sort of snoring right now. And so, yeah, we really love, I moved to DC. I grew up in upstate New York, and I moved to DC right after college, having no expectation of this being my permanent home. I sort of anticipated I'd come to DC for a couple of years and then move on. But then I met my husband, and he works for the government and he loves his job. And so, DC, in terms of his career, really, makes sense for it to remain home base. But, I've really grown to love the city and the area. And it's just a really great place to raise a family.
It is. It's beautiful. I call it an addiction. I know every time I'm there, I visualize myself living there thinking, oh man, just having all of those museums at your fingertips. And
well, yeah, everybody says that, but then, it's like anyone who lives here, the only time we ever go is, if you have family, if someone else is visiting, yeah. Or maybe for like, to take your kids, if you're a chaperone on like a school field trip, maybe. But yes, it is nice. I mean, honestly, just not that I'm going into the office anymore, but for the many, many years that I went downtown to go into the office, driving every morning past the monuments, past the White House, it never gets old.
That's awesome. That's terrific. Well, tell me, what do you do when you're not working?
Well, there's sort of pre-COVID and post-COVID. Well, but even consistent, actually. I mean, my family loves to travel, right? I think we're my husband and I, even pre-kids, talked about, we had wanderlust. It's hard for us to stay put in one place for a long time. So pre-kids, we spent a lot of time traveling all over the world. Once we had kids, it's been a little more contained, to the US and the Caribbean and Mexico, but still love to get out and see as many places as we can. And actually, one of the interesting little tidbits and sort of managing through the uncertainty of last year, my husband and I actually had both planned to take 8-week sabbaticals for the entire summer of 2020. And we were going to take our kids all over the world. We had this amazing trip planned. Of course, that didn't happen. But so we decided instead, we actually ended up doing a 2-week RV road trip across the country with our kids. And it was amazing. It was such a great experience. So we did manage to find a safe, socially distanced way to get in some travel despite the pandemic. So definitely a lot of travel. I have found a love of jigsaw puzzles during the pandemic. I've done dozens of puzzles. We have within SEPA, we have a puzzle swap. We sort of, people buy puzzles and then we just, drop them off on other people's porches as we finish them. And, it's just having relatively young kids. There's still a lot of my time is spent on, doing things with the kids. My most recent thing, something I'm surprised how much I'm enjoying it, is my daughter just started taking violin lessons. And because they have to be virtual, the teacher said, well, you really need to be here with her at the lessons and sort of helping her. And I'm really enjoying the lessons.
That's great.
Yeah. So anyway, those are just some of the things that have been keeping me busy.
That is wonderful. I just great. I'm now completely inspired to go on an RV trip with my family. So, and I know a couple of folks who did that over the summer, and well done. That's a
well, I think the best part, which we hadn't even thought about, was that, we went to a lot of national parks, and everywhere we went, because everywhere had restrictions on the number of people who could get in at any one point in time, we had places essentially to ourselves.
Right.
So, we got to see places that normally, you would be packed in like sardines, and there's hardly anyone there. It was amazing.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. All right. Well, let's shift gears again. I'm just curious, what are some of the big changes that you see for your organization and or the energy industry in, say, the next 12 months?
That's a good question. I know top of mind for everyone, both for me as a leader within my own organization, but as I talk to the C-suite executives who are on my board and at other member companies in the industry, everybody is spending a lot of time thinking about what is work life going to look like post-pandemic, especially when we think about it from a utility perspective, right? So for a lot of businesses, having people work remotely, really, it's a lot easier, or sort of just, there aren't, the utility industry has some unique circumstances, right? I mean, they are community-based organizations. So what does it mean for a utility to have people who not only may not work within their headquarters building, but what job functions need to be within the service territory versus they can have remote employees from anywhere, working from anywhere. So I know that's definitely over the next 12 months, something that a lot of people within our circles are going to be spending time thinking about, right? I mean, how many days a week do people need to go back to the office? Which positions need to go back at all? And that's the same for SEPA. We're still thinking that through for ourselves, what that's going to look like. But then there is just the energy transition continues. I think when the pandemic first hit, there was a lot of concern, and for coming from many places, that, gosh, is this going to sort of slow down progress on the energy transition? And I think pretty quickly we realized, no, that's not the case, right? It might actually even help expedite it, because there are ways that that a focus on clean energy and really can help stimulate the economy and help bring the economy back. So certainly, and that then ties into the new administration. With the new administration coming in, I think over the next 12 months, there will be a lot of focus again on the federal government. What role is the federal government going to play in clean energy and addressing climate change issues? And a lot of enthusiasm, I think, for the opportunities that might result from that.
Definitely. Well, I love that you mentioned the work from home part. It's truly something that we've been following almost since the lockdown started back last March, and just how different it is. And for this upcoming conference, actually the most recent one that we had for the Advancing Women in Utilities, the number one issue that kept coming up for the women who were participating was work-life balance. And like, okay, now I'm working from home and I'm, trying to manage my kids and trying to manage the household and trying to keep these projects moving forward for the company. When do I have time for myself? Or when do I have time to, when I'm doing one, I feel like I should be doing the other. And it was just it was an interesting thing. And I think it's an evolving issue, right? I mean, it's not, it's something where, say, last July, everybody thought, oh, well, we're probably going back into the office in September.
Yeah.
And then September rolled around and they said, oh, well, we're probably going back into the office in January. And, so it's kind of interesting to see how much more attention is being paid to that right now. So yeah. Okay, cool. Well,
yeah. Well, and the other, I think it's also interesting to think about different people, depending on what their job is, the different perspectives, right? So I totally understand what you just talked about. And for so many women and for many men, right, that work-life balance has been harder. For me, it's actually been easier because pre-pandemic, I was traveling all the time.
yes.
And so I was gone so much that, in fact, I actually feel like during the pandemic, I've had a better work-life balance simply because I'm home all the time. And so, in the sort of day-to-day moments, maybe it feels more chaotic. In the grand scheme of things, I actually feel like I feel less guilt. That guilt you talked about, I don't think you used the word guilt, but the guilt about like, oh, I'm spending my time on this, but I should be doing this. I have
Right.
less of that because
Yes,
even if I'm working, I'm home and I can take a break and I can go out, just open the door and go talk to my kids, as opposed to if I was at a conference across the country, that wasn't an option, right? And it's almost impossible to get my kids, as much as they are always in front of their iPads, they hate to do video calls. So even FaceTiming with them when when I was traveling was really tough.
Sure, especially if you're somewhere a couple of time zones away.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're trying to say, okay, what time is it home?
Right.
Yeah. So cool. Well, who are a couple of your role models? You could just name one or two.
Oh, that's a tough question. I don't know. I actually don't have an immediate answer to that. I mean, certainly I think about my parents, right? And watching, my dad was a nonprofit executive. So I think that is sort of interesting, sort of in hindsight, to look back on his career path and what that looked like. And some of the things that I just scratched my head and didn't understand when I was growing up. Now I look back and go, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I understand, all of these things that I didn't understand then. And my mom, I think the thing I appreciated most about my mother as a role model was she, when I was growing up, was a continuous learner. She was, whether she was taking classes or going back to school, or always looking to learn something new, which I think is great for anyone, right? To not just be stagnant in your status quo.
That's great. Yeah. Interestingly, in the times that I've asked this question of our other presenters at this conference, each speaker, without knowing it, mentioned their parents for the role model question. So you're right on. Not that there's a right answer. Oh, what's your biggest goal for 2021?
Ooh, that's a good question too.
'Tis the season, right?
So, well, I think professionally, in terms of SEPA, our biggest goal really is around diversifying our revenue, because like you, we have historically been very dependent upon in-person events. And I am confident that we're going to get back to a time when we have many in-person events, both large and small.
So am I.
And that part of our business will rebound. But the silver lining of the pandemic is it has given us the opportunity to think differently about things and create new ways to generate revenue, not only in terms of the education that we provide, but in terms of our research that we do. What are new ways we can get our research funded? So really, we're looking at 2021 to be pretty pivotal year for the organization to, we're trying a lot of different things, and hopefully we can find a small handful of those that really work and help us diversify our revenue so that we aren't ever dependent so heavily on any one single revenue stream.
Great. Totally get that. Yeah, we're very eager to get back in person, but I have to say it's really great to be able to offer this, right? I mean, I think it reached a point at some point in the summer where I think we all realized, like, I miss people. And even if it has to be at my desk, it's nice to be able to hear what other folks are doing in this industry, which is what I love so much about this industry.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer that post-pandemic, even once we get back to having in-person events, virtual events are going to have a new important ongoing role, because there are so many people that for whatever reason cannot travel across the country to a conference.
Right.
And so it really is a great way. This has forced us to learn a new delivery channel that allows us to broaden our reach to so many more people.
Exactly. That's exactly how we're looking at it too. So last two questions. What are you grateful for right now?
I am grateful. I actually sent my husband's birthday was on December 27th, and I sent him an email about this. I am really grateful for how well my family works together. And I mean, like, just taking a step back and thinking about what life has been like since March last year, right? I mean, we, between me, my husband, the two kids and the dog, and we have an au pair. I am grateful that we have not driven each other nuts at all, right? I mean, we actually have been together 24/7 for months on end, and there's been no conflict. It's been really enjoyable, relaxing. I don't know, maybe not relaxing, but it
works.
It works. That's it, right? That's a good way to put it. It works. So I'm really grateful for that, because I know everybody is not so fortunate, to have that situation. So, I just feel really grateful for the life that we have, and, that we're able to get through this in a way that isn't putting undue stress on any of us.
Excellent. That's wonderful. All right. So the last question, what are you most excited about right now?
What am I most excited about? Oh gosh. Well, at this very moment, what I'm most excited about. So when I do the conference coming up, this will not be what people see behind me, because as I mentioned earlier, we love traveling. We have a little bit of wanderlust. So we actually have rented a house on near the beach in the Florida Keys for a month.
Nice.
And so we leave later this week to go down to the Florida Keys. We're going to work and do school remotely from there.
Yay.
Middle of February. So at this moment, that is what I'm most excited about, is, starting to pack for Florida.
That's brilliant. You have inspired me. I think that's wonderful. And it's going to be a phenomenal experience for you and for your kids. So well done.
Well, I will admit, this isn't the first time we did it. We actually did it for the whole month of November as well. So we did it in November. We loved it so much. We're doing it again.
That's fabulous. That is awesome. Well, and
I guess we could say that the pandemic has turned us into snowbirds, even though we're in our 40s.
I'll tell you right now, I'm in Philadelphia, and it's cold here, and I don't like that. Like, the older I get, the less I like how cold it is. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like turning on the heat. I don't like paying for it. I don't like that. Very cool. Thank you so much for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, and we cannot wait to see you. Your presentation is Tuesday, February 9th at 1:30 Eastern time, and the conference starts Tuesday, January 19th. So we sure look forward to seeing you then. And you'll be signing in from the beautiful sunny Florida Keys. And yeah, it's terrific. So again, thanks so much for your time and for joining me for this little interview. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
Great. Thanks, Ashley.
Take care. Be well.